Good afternoon, investigators. It's Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. and it's Mike Evans and Casey Pine from Spy Curious. Today on the program, I'm going to tell you all about what's going to happen in our Westminster system in Australia due to the death of the monarch.
And I am going to talk about my OSINT cheat sheet that I've put together specifically for Spy Curious watchers.
Can't wait for that. And you're going to hear all about illegal dumping on the Gold Coast and what the Gold Coast City Council are going to be doing about that.
And also we're going to have a look at Andy Chambers' interview with Channel 10 in regards to the release of his upcoming book.
Can't wait to see that one. Casey, how are you this week?
I am fantastic, thank you.
You've been very busy again?
Yes, it's non-stop at the moment. Can't complain.
Well, that's great. That'll keep you out of trouble if you're busy. All right, people, we'll start off with some of the news, particularly the news today. What happens in the Westminster system in Canada, New Zealand and Australia and England when the monarch dies? Well, in civil investigations, bugger all, really. In criminal investigations, you're going to see what you read about in the paper where it says, "G'day, Jamie, how you going, mate?" Where it says, "G'day, Tracy, great to see you, Tracy. Hope you have a great weekend." R versus Smith or R versus Jones in a criminal proceedings. Now, what that means is R stands for Rex, now that Prince Charles has become King Charles, and previously, yesterday, R stood for Regina, which was our normal Queen Elizabeth, but now she's passed away. It reverts to her heir and him being male. When you see that R versus Smith or R versus Jones in criminal proceedings, it's now going to stand for Rex rather than Regina. Wow, that's a massive big change. And we've had it for a very long time, but if you've ever been a follower of popes and stuff like that, they can be elected pope 1 week and be dead in a month. So this could change rather rapidly. You never know. So I hope it doesn't, but anyway, that's the biggest effect that it's going to have on New Zealand, Canada, Australia and England in relation to the Westminster system. It's just that term in criminal proceedings. Yes, some civil investigations you do will go on to become criminal investigations, and that's where that will be added later on. I've got to look quickly. There's a couple of pieces of news we've got to look at really quickly. On the Gold Coast, the council's having a problem with illegal dumping. It's going through the roof. That sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? People illegal dumping through the roof. How do they do that? But it's the action of illegal dumping that's happening. So the Gold Coast City Council have had a gutful of it. They've got to send out people to pick up the rubbish, and they're finding human waste and needles and all sorts of horrible crap in the rubbish. And so they're cracking down on it. Now, how do they crack down on that sort of thing? They go to what we talk about all the time on this program. They stick their trail cams in dumping areas. So let's have a look at the result of one of those. Here it is. There's a picture taken from a trail cam in an area where a man in a white ute is dumping his green waste illegally in an area. So that trail cam would have picked up his license number of his vehicle as it pulled up, and they could use that to track him down and find out where he is through their connections with the local police. So really good news about trail cams. If you're looking for a trail cam this week, you're going to have to hurry because I think they're running out of them. Down at J-Car, this one, $99. Ooh, go to your lunch, Casey.
Just come around and take yours.
$99. And on Thursday night, I got an Eastern curlew in my backyard at midnight with this cam. It works really well. So it's black and white at night and colour during the day. But for $99, if your really good camera's been stolen or not working or you can't get the batteries, get this one down at J-Car this week, okay? I'll do a road test on it next week. Show you some Eastern curlews in the backyard. I was looking for koalas, but Eastern curlew will do for this week. So Gold Coast are saying, City Council, no illegal dumping, people. We've got our cameras out there, they're set up, and we're fining people for it. So that's really important news this week. The Coroners report into the death of Anthony Georgiou in Victoria in 2016 came out this week, where he was put in a stranglehold by a security officer, one of two security officers, who apprehended him for stealing at Bunnings, and later that day he died. The coroner's report came out. He was a father. He was a drug user. The drug use did basically attribute to his death in relation to the asphyxiation. All the way through being held, he was crying out that he couldn't breathe. He could not breathe. Now, this is pretty common during an arrest procedure, but he had difficulty breathing and he died later that day. The coroner said that although the two security guards had no instruction in what to do as far as the code of conduct for Bunnings, that he did not have the authority to do any civil action or finding against them in relation to it, and that will be a separate matter that will be taken on by his family. But the coroner's report into that, it's a long time down the track after. When you see these coroner's reports, and you're going to see them as a licensed private investigator, and you're going to read them quite frequently, the really spooky thing that they say and the terminology they use, and all life in the person had expired. That's what they say. Wow, here I am. I'm past my best before date. I've hit way past my use by date, and I'm rapidly heading towards my expiry date. And I have to read things like that. All life has expired. Quite scary, Casey, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so illegal dumping, the Bunnings. I had to get that out. Oh, this is a beauty. Oh, this is a really good one. This is a bit interactive, this one, Casey. You'll enjoy it. So a drunk man down in Hobart has kneed the police officer in the groin. All right, so that's what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the policeman has arrived at the scene, and he has found a person who has thrown a book at him, and it's made his mask go askew. There we go. That's word of the week. I'll demonstrate it. Here's my mask, and it's askew. All right. So that's pretty good. So when he arrived at the scene, there was a person there who was being, what was he being? Let's have a look. Belligerent. Okay, so you can all do that. You've all done it on Facebook, I'm sure. So this person was being belligerent, and he threw a book at the police officer and told him to do his effing job and whatever. Now, this is a bit of an issue, because what they've missed is the guy had a mental disability. He was intoxicated, badly intoxicated, and he'd upset some people just before the police officer arrived, and he copped a fearful hiding, and he was knocked out. So the policeman's come along, the guy's sort of come back to sort of reality, and he starts abusing and throwing things at the police officer. I've discussed this before on this program. So the police officer goes on to say, arrived, he was being belligerent and obtuse. No, whoops. Belligerent, askew. What happened to obtuse? Oh, well, there wasn't abuse there somewhere. I don't know what I've done with it. But you'll have to demonstrate that for us. Casey, would you please be obtuse for us? Yes, that's good. Well done.
What?
All this is in the police speak report of what happened. And the magistrate, she's listening to this and going, all right, I'm going to fine you for this. And you haven't had a drink since it happened, and that's good. But, you're going to get $400 fine and $60 worth of court costs. Now, as an investigator, you never, ever use askew, belligerent, obtuse, right? You don't use those words, all right? Stop all that. You're an investigator. Don't do it. Okay, so you'll see these things happening all the time when you read police reports. Decamped from the scene. You never, ever, ever say that as a licensed private investigator in a report. Only 100-year-old police officers say that. You don't say the offside of the vehicle, because you don't know which side of the vehicle is the offside of the vehicle. Horse riders do, but you don't. Okay, my favourite one after two loud bangs is halt police. That's a really good one, and police really enjoy doing that. But what the magistrate missed here was the person had been knocked out. Now, he's throwing a book. He's near a police officer who's only doing his job in the groin, and that he had soreness of the groin for some time after. This is a serious matter. But when you're knocked out and you come to, especially if you hit your head, and he got hit in the head and knocked out because he was being a dick, right? It was his own fault. You could be an automaton. And that means you just go robotic and you're not responsible for your actions. So this was a little bit disappointing to see that the magistrate in this case down in Hobart did not take that into account. I think magistrates down there are going to have a little bit of enlightening training in relation to looking at those matters. It doesn't make it excusable. It doesn't make it any less traumatic for the police officer, but in accidents, it's a really common thing. And in Queensland, a magistrate would direct the person to go and get some kind of legal defence because that automaton is so common in car accidents. It's a defence to what you're charged for. And the magistrates would stop it at that point if they found they'd been knocked out, they'd just recovered at that time, and they've just gone automaton, so automatically responded to a danger. So that is something that's really important to consider when you're looking at motor vehicle accidents where people do hit their head and they come out. They often attack the first responders or the police, and it's no excuse. Doesn't make it excusable, but you must have that understanding of that's what could happen. So covered trail cams, done that. Casey, what have you got for us this week?
Yeah, so as Jamie asked so kindly last week if I could put together a OSINT cheat sheet, and I've just started working on it. It's currently a working document, so I'll bring it up what I have so far. And these are my favorite things that I use on a daily basis. So you've got your Google operators there. If you are a desktop investigator, or if you are someone that does research on a subject before you go out on surveillance, or you're just doing research on a person, watch a good YouTube video on your Google operators. It's really important to learn how to use them because they yield so many results. For example, I had someone that I was investigating a couple of months ago, and this lady was not supposed to be working, but she had a LinkedIn profile for a little while, and she had decided that she would start her own business, and she started up this LinkedIn profile, and I used Google operators to look for her name. And although the LinkedIn profile didn't exist anymore, the pictures that she had put up had been cached in Google and brought them up, showing that at some stage she did have a LinkedIn profile. It was from this date. These are all the different pictures. She's going around on a speaking circuit and doing all these different things. Although she said that she hadn't have worked, she didn't have an ABN, but she had all of that stuff. So it brings up really good information that you can use. So file type, I love file type. So I often try and search for PDFs, especially when looking for students or professionals, people that are going to have some kind of file available on the internet. So that brings up a whole bunch of stuff, and it's really fantastic. And yeah, there are a number of ways that you can use Google operators. Technically, my favorite ones aren't necessarily there, but that's something that's just like a whole hour I could do alone on good Google operators. But I'm sure that there's a really good YouTube video out there. If you can use learn how to use Google operators well, then you're doing very, very well. Also, EPOS. So EPOS is where you put in the email. I spoke about this last week. It's fantastic because it shows whether the person has used their email in a while. So whether they've accepted the terms and conditions of the Google email or the Hotmail email, to show whether it's still active or not. It'll show what different accounts that it's been linked to, and what kind of different data breaches that they've been in. So it's really fantastic. And it also brings up reviews. So if they've reviewed something on Google, for example, if I go to the hairdresser and I like my hairdresser and they say, can you leave me a Google review? It'll bring that stuff up for you if that exists. And it's attached to that email, which is really good because it's great for location. It's good for finding out maiden names and things like that. Really good pivot points for you. What else do I have on here? Creditor Watch. So Creditor Watch is something I use not all the time, but often enough. So if you are looking at someone's ABN and it's brought up a registered business name, and you can go to the ASIC website and put in that business name, and it doesn't give you too much information without having to pay for it. So I sign up for the free trial for Creditor Watch, and you get a number of free searches. But it brings up some really good information. So it'll give you the person's name, if they're listed as a director in any other company. It shows how many people have actually looked at this, their profile, to look at the credit rating. It'll bring up other directors or the secretaries of companies, so other names that you can use as pivot points. So it's really good. I like this one. There are a number of different ones out there. ASIC actually list a bunch of them on their website, but this is so far my favorite. They lay everything out really nicely. And yeah, it's just really easy to use. So Creditor Watch, I've gotten some great information from that. Detective Desk, that is my paid database that I use for pivot points and checking properties and what name a property is in and things like that, and other pivot points. So I don't have a Detective Desk thing, but I've done a review on Detective Desk before. I'm sure you would be able to have a look at that in the videos that Mike has on YouTube. I think it's also on my account. And my virtual machine. So I feel like I might harp on about this a little bit, but it's important to have. You really need to have your virtual machine sorted out. So you don't want to risk infecting your computer or getting things stolen or having malware installed on your computer as an investigator. You need to really protect your identity and your computer's health. So you've got VirtualBox as the fake machine that you use, and then the software that I use the TraceLabs virtual machine, which it's all free to download. Have a look at it. If you go to, I've got the TraceLabs link in here. So if you want this document, I'll just put it down the bottom. I didn't even type in my email correctly. So I'm sure Mike can fix that for me in the background. Email me at casey@australiansecurityacademy.edu.au. So where are we at to? So I can email this through to you, and I've added a couple more things on since doing this. But yeah, virtual machine, I've spoken about that before. It's like a computer within a computer. It makes whatever you're looking at, it has it in a closed system, so nothing can jump out onto your computer. So if you click it, say you put someone's information into Spiderfoot, and Spiderfoot is something I use regularly, and it will bring up a link where this person's name appeared, and it is some kind of malicious software. Maybe it has something absolutely nothing to do with them. They just happen to have that name that appears in that link, and you click on it and it tries to do terrible things to your computer. That's okay, because it's in a virtual machine, it's in a closed system, it cannot infect your normal computer. So that is the importance of a virtual machine. It also obfuscates your not your VPN, your footprint, your digital footprint. So the less of a digital footprint you have as an investigator, you don't want anything coming back to you. So it's really important. Didn't even put my VPN there. So I use Proton VPN. I'll make sure I put that in. It's really reliable. It's a really nice interface just to help cover that. And I've got Spiderfoot there. I feel like I'm missing something. But yeah, so these are the things that I use virtually every day. And in there, I've got a link in this sheet to a really good, it's a 4-hour video, but it's OSINT fundamentals and it is fantastic. I often, if there's something that I've forgotten or haven't done in a while, I go back and I find it because it's all bookmarked really nicely in the video. So it'll show you where to go for what, or you can just watch the whole thing. It's fantastic. It's a great reference. So I'll put that on the sheet as well. And I am also doing OSINT Combines. They have a yearly big training for people every year, and that is next week for me. So I'll be in 3 days of training for that. So I'm sure I'll learn heaps of new things and come back with a whole bunch of new tips as well for you. So I will keep adding to this sheet, but if you would like the sheet, email me and I will send it to you. I've got it in Google Docs, so it'll be a shared working sheet that I will constantly update and you'll be able to see the updates. So that's it.
Very kind of you, Casey. Don't put up any comments because we're being spammed by 69mega.com, okay?
Oh, God.
Anyway, we've got a question about our Regina from Tracy. So Tracy's question is, what's the relevance of Rex and Regina? Good question, Tracy. Now, what I want to do is I want to take you back, okay? We're going to go back 20 years. So you're taken back 20 years, Tracy, to when you used to watch Ally McBeal. And you'd be all excited. You pour yourself a cup of cocoa, you sit down and watch Ally McBeal. And in a criminal matter in the United States of America, you'd see them come out and they would say, the people versus Jones, the people versus Smith, or the people versus Capital Corp, or whatever it is. That's their way in America of saying the law-abiding citizenship of our country of 500 million people are versing this criminal. That's what they're saying. Now, we do it a little bit differently in the Westminster system. So it's our monarch who's doing it. So our monarch now that it's Charles is Rex. Yesterday, when it was Queen Elizabeth, it was Regina. So that's the law-abiding citizens of the Commonwealth are versing this criminal and trying to prosecute them. So I hope that explains the relevance of the R. Casey, come back to me for 1 second.
Yep.
You did a really big investigation this week that involved listing how many people?
Oh, gosh, over 900 people.
So there we go. In this matter that Casey did this week, there's a lot of people. So you can't come out and say, look, the 26 million population of Australia, starting with aardvarkness versus Smith, right the way through to Zulu versus Smith, you can't name them. So just for simplicity, you have Rex versus, that's Rex, the law-abiding Commonwealth, versus Smith. And in America, they say the people versus Jones. It's just the way they communicate that. Thanks, Casey. I just wanted to clarify that amount of people. That's a pretty big investigation you did this week, Casey Lee.
It was. It took days.
Okay, so as promised, we are going to go and have a look at Channel 10's interview with Andy Chambers over his book. And after the interview, I'll come back with some really good jobs for this week. Bring it on, Andy.
It was pretty hard enough, but imagine doing it blind.
Yes, Andy Chambers is the blind private eye, and he joins us now from Melbourne. Andy, how are you going? You haven't always been blind, so what led you to become a private detective more than 40 years ago?
Well, hi. Thanks for the introduction, guys. That was fabulous. Quite simply, I emigrated to Australia over 40 years ago, 1981 to be precise. When I got there, I intended joining the Australian Federal Police. And when I went for my interview, I was informed by the recruitment officer that I had to spend 2 years in Australia to get my citizenship. I was obviously a bit crestfallen, and he suggested I contact a local private detective who could give me some work. I had to think about it, and I'd always been an inquisitive kid, you know, asking the school teacher the awkward questions and being persistent. So I thought, let's give it a go, and the rest, as they say, is history.
That's it. You're a lot cooler than Axel Foley, in fairness, Andy. Your very first job was undercover, though. Can you tell us about that in a nutshell, and your life in danger?
Yes, absolutely. Look, my life's been in danger quite a lot, especially when my wife's cooking. But on a serious note, yes, it was. It was my first job. As you would understand, no matter who you are, when you're going in for your first job, you're nervous. And I was particularly nervous in that situation because we were investigating racism, extortion and bullying in a steel foundry. And the guys that were the alleged perpetrators were particularly dangerous guys with long criminal records. Now, if they had found out what I was doing, I'd very likely have found myself in the foundry itself. There were no CCTV cameras in those days, so yes, it was risky.
Well, now you lost your sight 20 years ago, but that didn't stop you. You kept working as a private eye. You even rescued an Australian woman whose husband trapped her in Egypt. How did you manage to get her home?
Yeah, well, in that situation, I had plenty of experience by that stage, and I acted as the controller of the operation. So we sent a couple of our chaps over there to see if we could get her out by water. There was a no-fly ban on her passport, so she couldn't leave legally. So they looked at that, and then on the other side, we spoke to contacts we had who were talking to a lawyer over there who was maybe going to speak to the officials and see if he could persuade them to take off the no-fly so she could fly out. The guys that went over there, they realised that it wasn't possible to take her out by sea because she had a young daughter with her. At that stage, there were a lot of people smugglers on the waters and plenty of Egyptian naval patrol boats. So it was far too risky to take her over to Cyprus. So we went with the other course of action, and luckily the work paid off, and the ban was lifted, and she flew out within about 12 hours. During that time, I kept in touch with her every day, and just to keep her hopes up and keep her feeling good. And then now I believe she's living comfortably somewhere in Victoria.
Wow, what an incredible story. Have you ever refused to take on a case?
Oh, yes, many times. In fact, I would say we've refused to take on more cases than we've actually done. The situation is when somebody comes in to give us a job, we look at them, we really have to perform a due diligence on them and use our perceptiveness to see if they're telling the truth, because if you don't research it properly, you could break the law unknowingly. And there's a lot of stalkers out there that would try and use us to do their work for them because they might have a ban in place or an order against them. So yeah, quite a few are time wasters, and quite a few are like that. So yeah, we knock back a lot of jobs, especially if you want your wife followed or your husband followed. Although there's a couple of those referenced in my book, to the most case, we leave that to companies that deal with that. They specialise in that area, and we let them run with those types of jobs.
Because I thought I recognised you there, Andy, for a second. So I was, come here. Have you ever had a camera in a pen or a gun in a watch like James Bond? And I need to ask you, though, do you mind me asking, what happened to your eye?
Both of them are shot. Around about 2000, I was having problems with my eyes and whatnot, and it wasn't the alcohol. So I went to a specialist who told me that I was slowly but steadily going blind, and there was nothing that could be done about it. It was a diabetes-related injury that I had acquired, and of course I had to face the facts. Then what do? Do I just give up and crawl into a shell, or do I keep going? And you go through those emotions of anger, frustration, sorrow, sadness. But I made up my mind to keep going and surrounded myself with a really good team to help me get through. And they tapped into my knowledge base, and I tapped into their side.
And now we're going to tap into your story. This is fantastic. Andy Chalmers' book is called Problem Solved, True Stories from a Blind Private Eye. Andy, you tell a hell of a story. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.
Good on you, mate.
Thanks so much.
Fantastic
He is one of the nicest guys you will ever meet, Andy Chambers, and he's written a book about his experiences, and we'll get Casey to tell you all about the book. Here it comes. Wait on, we're coming. When you can get it, how much it's going to cost. Go, Casey.
Yeah, so release date is coming up, 3 days and counting, 12th of September, and $29.99. And I believe, what's the link to it, Mike? Maybe I should put it in my OSINT cheat sheet.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it. I just love it when I get to read these things. So I can't wait. Put it in your diary, 3 days time, 12th September. I'll get you a copy for your birthday, Mike.
Thanks very much, Casey. That's great. I'll look forward to reading it. Can't wait till it comes out. Everybody's got to buy it for their private investigator in their life for Christmas. You won't be disappointed. A real Molly Meldrum there. Go out and do yourself a favour and have a read of Andy's book. Tracy's come back and she's done a research and she's found out that Rex or Regina stands for the Crown King or the Crown Queen. Well done, Tracy. Great to see that. Thank you. I've got to cover some really rip-roaring jobs that we've got available this week. Pam Booth down in South Australia is looking for a factual investigator down there. Quantum Corp, they want a licensed investigator in Sydney and also a licensed investigator down in Launceston in Tasmania. You won't go wrong working with Quantum Corp. Other news this week, Wayne Carey over in the Perth Casino, the ex-AFL footballer, dropped a bag of white powder at the Perth Casino. Now, I've been the investigator for a couple of Australia's casinos, and when you're in that security room watching the cameras where they watch the cards and the people switching the whatever it is, the chips and stuff like that, those cameras look right down. They can't detect what a drug is in a plastic bag, of course, but my word, they see freaking everything. And it's just like being 2 inches away. So that's never drop your bag of white powder when you're in the casino because they don't like drugs in there, believe it or not. That's weird. So Wayne Carey's got himself into strife for the of course, what the newspapers did, they went straight to the best source of information, his ex-girlfriend, to get some comments in relation to that, which is what we do as investigators. You go and look for the ex, you're going to find out everything. So they really ploughed it up. I think that they're really going to be employing more investigators at the AFL because this and with what we had last week with the inappropriate touching, is the kind of behaviour that the AFL don't want to see at a family sport with sponsors who don't like to see this sort of thing. So commentators have the same rules that apply to the footballers. WorkSafe in Victoria been bragging that they've stopped $37 million worth of workers' compensation fraud, and that's because they got all new U-Butte ways of detecting fraud. And it's quite difficult to pull the wool over the eyes of people who have constantly, for the last 50 years, seen what incomes are in relation to what jobs. They have a database. They know what a rocket scientist earns. They know what someone that's never been employed earns. They know. And you lie to them, it's going to flag straight away in their data matching system. So, you know, WorkSafe Victoria, they're saving money on fraud in different ways, as well as surveillance. So good stuff. Well done, WorkSafe Victoria. The other jobs I've just got to cover really quickly. This is a beauty. Mental health disability case manager at the Coroners Court in Victoria, where they'll talk about all life expiring, as we've talked about before. Near my expiry date. And we have the operational analyst for the Australian Secret Intelligence Service. So you'd be a real spy. That's a great one. This is a beauty. You're in New South Wales and you're a factual investigator. Get in touch with Kelly down at ABI. This is a rarest of rare opportunities. This is a great investigation firm. You'll be doing workers' compensation investigations. You'll be doing corporate investigations for code of conduct, inappropriate behaviour, inappropriate use of power, inappropriate application of process, policy and procedure, and you'll be working for the professionals in New South Wales. So that is a great opportunity with ABI. There's Kelly's contacts there. Now, if you miss Kelly's contacts, you can just jump on and watch the replay of this tomorrow, where 150,000 people have gone and watched the videos on our YouTube channel. So if you type in Australian Security Academy in YouTube, it's going to come up and you'll be able to see this episode 160. I've got to turn off the video first. Learn how to do it, Mike. 165 of Spy Curious, where you can see that job with ABI and the others. So don't miss out on it. That is an amazing opportunity with ABI. And if you've got a certificate for in government investigations anywhere around Australia, they are seeking multiple compliance and reportable incidents officers, every state and territory: Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Hobart, Darwin, Perth, Adelaide, you name it, Flinders Island, you name it, they're looking for people. Don't forget to go down to JCar this week and grab a hold of that $99, this is bargain of a lifetime, $99 trail cam. Okay, my first one of these cost me $1,500 and it didn't do what this one does for $99. Okay, so get down there and practice with your trail cam so you can use it for working for the council on illegal dumpers and that sort of thing. It's a great opportunity. Have we covered everything, Casey?
Mm-hmm. We actually, we're part where I live, there's quite a long road to get into my estate, and because it's a no-through road and it's a long country road, people think, oh, I can dump my stuff down this road, because they don't know if you keep going, there's actually an estate at the end. So there's constantly beds and tyres, and I'm going to put my trail cam down there, Mike.
Put your trail cam down there, Casey. So like this one, right, you will be right onto them. Now, if they're picking rubbish up, there's probably not a lot you can do, but if they're chucking it out, that's different. So make sure you don't put the video up in reverse. It won't look right. But I'm sure you can do that. So no dumping on the Gold Coast, people. We've covered Wayne Carey's white powder. We've covered Andy Chambers' great book. We have covered the issues of Bunnings and their loss prevention officers, the Rex and Regina thing. We've covered Casey's OSINT tips, and you can get those off Casey. I'll bring it up one last time. Here it is, your final. Oh, Casey had it there. I didn't see that. Sorry, Casey. So get in touch with Casey, and she will send that out to you. And so it's a Google Doc, so it updates automatically. So for the next 10 years, Casey's going to be updating you for free. Other registered training organisations charge you for less than that, and Casey's giving it away free here at the Australian Security Academy. Well done, Casey. Just a little thing that happened to me today. 9 students enrolled in our Certificate 3 in Investigative Services today from around the country. One of them was a student from 2004. Had a very distinctive name, and I looked at it and I looked it up in our system, and there it was, way back in 2004. Here we are, 18 years later, and they're enrolled in the new Certificate 3 in Investigative Services for compliance in Victoria. So that was great. I was really touched by that. Really rewarding to see that happening. Thanks for sharing that with us, Casey. Thanks for giving it away free to all our viewers and our students. And I've got to come back here, and we're going out the way we always do.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
Oh, well, that's it, Casey. We've finished. What about boring Andy Chambers? God, he's coming out with a book and boring everybody to death. Oh, no, the camera's on. Oh, dear. It's a great read, people. Get onto it. You'll enjoy it. As you saw in the video, he's a lot of fun. Watch the replay tomorrow. Thanks, Casey. See you next week.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend, everybody.